All right, let's deep dive into this mental health and work-life balance thing. You sent over some excerpts from an article, and I gotta say, it's making me think differently about my own work days.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic these days.
So the article starts by defining mental health,
Mm,
but it's not just about, like, feeling happy all the time.
right. It's more than that. It's like a three-legged stool, emotional, psychological, and social well-being.
Three-legged stool. I like that. So if one leg's wobbly,
The whole thing can topple over.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It affects how we manage stress, connect with others, even how we make decisions. All stuff that impacts our work.
Exactly.
And, the article doesn't shy away from the hard stuff, the stigma around mental health in the workplace. It's like people are afraid to admit when they're struggling,
Yeah, that fear of judgment or, repercussions.
which is understandable.
Totally. But it prevents people from getting support. And that can lead to, this downward spiral of worse mental health and worse performance at work.
Speaking of work, the article talks about work-life balance, too, and how it's constantly changing. Feels like that old clock-in, clock-out model is fading away.
It is, especially with technology blurring the lines between work life and personal life. The article talks about segmentation and integration
Segmentation versus integration. So, like, keeping those worlds totally separate
versus more of a blend.
But the article doesn't really go into the pros and cons of each. What are your thoughts?
Well, segmentation with those clear boundaries,
Yeah.
it can protect personal time,
Right.
but it can also feel rigid, like unrealistic in today's world where we're always connected.
I see, I see.
Integration, though, it gives you flexibility, but you got to manage it carefully. Or burnout city. Think about it. A surgeon can't exactly take personal calls during surgery, right?
Definitely not.
But for a freelance writer, maybe integrating work and life just feels natural.
So it depends on the person and the job. The article then dives into what affects this whole work-life balance, starting with, like, company culture, company policies. They mention companies like Google and Microsoft as good examples,
Right, and it's not just about the fun perks like ping pong tables or free snacks.
although I wouldn't say no to those.
It's deeper. It's about fostering a culture where employees feel valued and supported. Like Google offers generous parental leave and on-site childcare. That's a statement. We care about you both inside and outside of work.
But what about smaller companies? Can they do that kind of stuff, create that support? I mean, they don't have Google's resources, right?
They can. It's not about grand gestures. It's about fostering respect and flexibility. Maybe a small business can't have on-site childcare, but they can have flexible hours or remote work options, especially for, working parents.
Makes sense. The article also talks about individual personality and how you cope with things. They mentioned resilience and emotional intelligence. But those are kind of big concepts.
They are. Think of resilience as bouncing back from setbacks, navigating stressful situations without falling apart, like shock absorbers for your mental well-being,
Okay, I can picture that.
and emotional intelligence.
It's being aware of your emotions and
Yeah.
managing them, but also understanding other people's emotions. Helps you navigate the workplace, build strong relationships.
Which is so important, feeling supported at work.
Absolutely.
And speaking of support, the article talks about family and social support systems. It even says that a lack of support at home can make work stress way worse.
That's true. Having a strong network to lean on when you're overwhelmed,
Yeah?
it's crucial. Partner, family, friends, even a supportive colleague, someone to talk to, vent to, or just take your mind off things.
Yeah, the safety net.
Yeah.
But then the article brings up technology. It's like this double-edged sword, right? Lets us be flexible, work remotely, but it also creates that always-on feeling. It's true, technology can be incredible. Stay connected, work from anywhere. But then there's this expectation to be constantly available. And we're not meant to be on all the time. We need to disconnect, recharge.
Yeah, totally. I need some tech-free time before bed to unwind. Like, I definitely don't sleep with my phone under my pillow.
Right. We need downtime to be our best, both at work and outside of work.
So how do we create healthier boundaries in this tech-driven world? How can we and how can our employers do that?
That's the big question, and it's something we'll definitely dig into more. But first, let's talk about the good stuff, the benefits of actually achieving work-life balance. Because there are a lot of reasons to strive for it. It's not just about feeling less stressed. It's about living a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life.
Okay, I'm all for the good stuff. The article mentions, the obvious one, better mental and physical health. Less stress equals better well-being.
Mm.
But what are some of the specific physical health benefits that come with a better work-life balance?
Well, think about it. Chronic stress is like this fuel for all sorts of health issues: heart disease, high blood pressure, digestive problems, weaker immune system. When you're constantly stressed, your body's in fight or flight mode, pumping out hormones like cortisol. And over time, that can really mess you up.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So by reducing stress, prioritizing things like sleep, exercise, healthy eating,
Yeah.
you're giving your body a chance to repair, to function the way it should.
It's like preventative maintenance then.
Exactly. And that leads to a lower risk of those chronic conditions and a stronger ability to fight off illness.
So it's not just feeling good mentally, it's protecting your body long term. The article also mentions enhanced job satisfaction and better performance. So like if I start taking more breaks, I magically become a top performer.
No magic involved. But there's definitely a connection between well-being and how productive you are. When you're burnt out, exhausted, you can't do your best work, more mistakes, less creativity, zero motivation. But feeling balanced, energized, you're more focused, more engaged, you can come up with those innovative solutions.
So it's like having a well-tuned engine, not just magic.
Got it. And the article talks about personal relationships, too. Makes sense. If you're always working, you're not exactly nurturing those connections.
It's true. Work-life balance allows you to invest in those relationships. Quality time with family, catching up with friends, even just having a real conversation with your partner after a long day. And strong relationships. They're crucial for our overall well-being. They give us that sense of belonging, support, love, and that helps us deal with the tough stuff in life.
It's like putting deposits in your happiness bank. And there's this other point the article makes that I hadn't thought of before: increased creativity and innovation. How does having a life outside of work actually make you more creative? When you're always in the same environment, the same routine, your thinking gets stale. But expose yourself to new experiences, new people, new ideas, and your brain starts making new connections. It's like cross-training for your mind.
Cross-training. I like that.
Think about it. Some of your best ideas probably come when you're not at work. Out for a walk, in the shower, just daydreaming.
Yeah, that's true.
Your mind wanders, connects things you wouldn't normally connect, and bam, fresh perspectives. And those are gold in the workplace, whether you're brainstorming new products or just finding a better way to do things.
Like taking your brain on vacation so it comes back refreshed, ready for anything. But let's be real, work-life balance. It's not always easy. What are some of the roadblocks that get in our way?
That's a great question. We all face challenges trying to juggle work and life. Sometimes it feels impossible. But by understanding those obstacles, we can start to figure out how to overcome them, how to create a more fulfilling, more sustainable life. And that's what we'll explore next. Yeah, it can be a tough balancing act, especially in certain fields, like the article mentions. High job demands, long hours. It even talks about, like, young lawyers working crazy hours, 60, 80 hours a week.
Right. That's intense. I mean, how do you even have a life outside of work with that kind of schedule? But I guess that's just the reality of those professions, right? Is work-life balance even possible in those high-pressure fields?
It's definitely harder, yeah. But I don't think it's impossible. It takes a mindset shift. For individuals, it's about setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care, even when you feel overwhelmed.
That's easier said than done, though.
True. And then for organizations, it's creating a culture that values well-being and doesn't just equate long hours with being productive. Like, the article even suggests companies could have policies to, discourage after-hours emails or limit meetings outside of regular work hours.
So it's about realistic expectations, recognizing that people need time to recharge. We're not machines. The article also mentions that a lack of support from employers can be a big obstacle, like inflexible work arrangements, not enough mental health resources, even the lack of parental leave.
Unfortunately, a lot of workplaces still have that old school mindset. Like, you should just compartmentalize your life, leave your personal stuff at the door. But we're not robots,
Right, we're human.
We have lives, needs outside of work. And when those needs aren't met, it affects everything: our well-being, how well we can do our jobs. The article highlights some companies that are doing it right, though, like Unilever. They've got these mental health programs, counseling services, mental health days, and they've seen less stress-related absences, more employee engagement.
So it's not just good for employees, it benefits the company too.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
But what about those of us who just struggle with boundaries? Even when our employers give us flexibility. I know I'm guilty of checking emails late at night, on weekends, even when I tell myself I'm going to unplug.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think it ties into that other obstacle the article mentions: personal ambitions and societal expectations. We live in a culture that glorifies busyness. Like, being busy equals success.
It's true. It's like this constant pressure to do more, be more, and then you add social media into the mix, where everyone's showcasing their perfect lives, their amazing productivity.
The highlight reel. We're bombarded with images and stories that aren't even real. It's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself, feeling inadequate, like you're falling behind.
Right. Like no one's posting about their messy desk, their pile of laundry. But seriously, how do you break free from that always-on mentality when it feels like everyone around you is doing the same thing?
Well, first you have to be aware of it. Recognize that you're in that cycle. And then it's about making choices. Conscious choices to prioritize your well-being. Maybe that means setting specific work hours, turning off notifications, making time for things you enjoy, reading, being in nature, or even just taking a nap. And sometimes it means saying no to work demands, to social events, things that drain your energy.
It's like protecting your energy.
Yeah.
But that's hard. What if you disappoint people
No,
or miss
that's-
out on an opportunity?
It's a balance for sure. But remember, you can't pour from an empty cup.
And speaking of pouring from an empty cup, the article also talks about remote work. It's this paradox, right? It's flexible, but it can also make it harder to separate work from your personal life.
Oh, I feel that
Yeah.
big time. It's like my home has become this weird blend of work and life. I'll be cooking dinner and suddenly remember I need to send an email. Or trying to relax and then get pulled into a work chat. It's hard to switch off when your office is right there. It is. That lack of physical separation makes it hard to create mental boundaries. But you can still do things to create some separation, even if you're working from your kitchen table.
Okay, give me some tips. I need all the help I can get.
One thing is to try and have a dedicated workspace. Even if it's just a corner of a room, it's a physical signal to your brain, this is work time versus this is relax time. And stick to a regular work schedule as much as possible, just like you would if you were going into an office. It creates routine predictability, which can actually help reduce stress.
So, creating structure, even when you're not physically going somewhere different. But what about when work just bleeds into your personal time? Like, how do I stop myself from constantly checking email, feeling like I have to be available 24/7?
That's where those boundaries come in again. Set expectations with your employer, your colleagues. Let them know you'll respond during certain times, but that you also value your personal time. And turn off those notifications. Silence your phone.
So, give yourself permission to disconnect, which, like we said, is so important for work-life balance. The article also mentions this debate around work-life balance, though. Some people want strict boundaries, while others are all about integration. It even says that different cultures see it differently, too.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the one hand, you have people who are all about those defined work hours, dedicated personal time. They see it as essential to prevent burnout. They might argue for things like no emails on weekends or digital detox periods.
I could get behind that. Sounds kind of amazing, actually.
Right. But then you have the work-life integration folks. They love the flexibility, the autonomy. They might say, hey, if I can take a break to go to my kid's school event and make up the work later, that's great.
So finding a rhythm that works for you instead of being stuck in a rigid structure. But how do you navigate all that when there are so many external pressures, too?
It comes down to knowing yourself and communicating. Understanding what you need and want, and talking to your employer, your colleagues about it, and being open to experimenting, adjusting as you go. There's no magic formula. It's about finding what helps you feel fulfilled and energized, both in work and in life. And that might take some trial and error along the way. Speaking of finding solutions, let's talk about some specific strategies. Things that individuals and organizations can do to improve mental health and create more sustainable work-life balance.
Yeah, let's get practical. It's great to talk about the challenges, but what can we actually do about it? What are some of the key takeaways for individuals? Like, where should we start if we want to create more balance in our lives?
I think it starts with recognizing that you have control. You have the power to make choices that support your well-being. It's shifting your mindset from I have to I choose to.
Yeah, it's a good point. But it's so easy to get stuck in that have-to mindset, especially when you're facing deadlines, demanding bosses, and a to-do list that never ends. How do you get out of that feeling of constantly being overwhelmed?
The article suggests going back to basics, time management, prioritizing. It sounds simple, but it's so important. Figure out what's truly important, set realistic goals, create a schedule that helps you focus on those priorities.
So being more intentional, not just reacting to whatever comes your way. Are there any specific techniques that can help with that?
They mention the Pomodoro technique, where you work in focus bursts with breaks in between.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that, like interval training, but for your brain. Work hard, rest, repeat.
Exactly. It can be really helpful for improving focus, preventing burnout, especially for tasks that require a lot of concentration.
But what about when you're feeling totally overwhelmed and you just need to, like, hit the reset button?
Mhm.
The article talks about mindfulness and stress reduction techniques. What role do those play in creating balance?
Mindfulness is about being present, paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's a great way to manage stress, anxiety, because it helps you step back from those racing thoughts, create calm amidst the chaos.
So it's like building inner peace, inner
Yeah.
strength, to help you deal with the ups and downs of work and life.
Exactly. And there are a lot of ways to practice mindfulness: meditation, yoga, even just taking a few deep breaths, noticing the sensations in your body.
Simple things can make a big difference. What about setting boundaries, both for ourselves and with others? Any strategies there?
Definitely. The article talks about creating those clear boundaries between work and personal time, especially for remote workers. Things like setting specific work hours and sticking to them, turning off notifications outside of those hours, having a designated workspace.
So both physical and mental boundaries to protect your time, your energy. But what about those external pressures that make it hard to set those boundaries? Like, what if your boss expects you to be available 24/7, or your colleagues are always emailing after hours?
That's when you have to communicate. Have those open and honest conversations with your employer, your colleagues. Explain that you're committed to your work, but you also need time to recharge. And remember, you're not alone in this. A lot of people are struggling with this. By speaking up, you might even help create a better work environment for everyone.
Shifting the culture. It's a big task. But what about technology? It can be such a help, but also such an hindrance when it comes to work-life balance. How do we use its power without letting it take over our lives?
Right. It's a constant challenge. The article suggests a two-pronged approach. One, use technology to be more efficient, more flexible, project management tools to stay organized, communication platforms, time tracking apps.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. But then there's the other side. Preventing tech from becoming a constant distraction, a source of stress.
Which it totally can be.
And that's where digital detox comes in. Carving out tech-free time, an hour before bed, a screen-free weekend, maybe even a whole digital Sabbath where you completely unplug.
Whoa, unplug completely. That sounds almost impossible these days.
It might feel that way, but it's so important for our mental and emotional well-being, and you don't have to go all in right away. Start small. Turn off notifications for a few hours a day. Have tech-free zones in your home. It's about being intentional with your tech use.
Choosing how you want to engage with it, not letting it control you. Okay, so we've talked about what individuals can do, but what about organizations? What's their role in all of this? How can they create a culture of well-being and support work-life balance?
They have a huge role to play. It's about more than just perks and benefits. It's about creating a culture that values balance, flexibility, mental health. The article highlights some companies that are doing this really well. It's pretty inspiring, actually.
Okay, let's hear about them. I always love learning from companies that are getting it right. Who are these superstars of work-life balance?
Well, the article talks about Buffer. They're like a poster child for a remote work culture.
Okay, so what are they doing that's so special?
A big thing is they offer unlimited vacation time, flexible hours. They even have mental health support as part of their benefits.
Unlimited vacation, that sounds amazing. But also kind of risky, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's stopping people from just taking off all the time?
It's a fair point, but they've actually found that it creates a culture of responsibility. When people feel trusted, they're more likely to take the time they need, and then they're more productive, more engaged when they are working.
So it's a trust thing.
Exactly. It's about mutual respect. Benefits everyone in the end.
The article also mentions Deloitte. They're known for, like, work-life integration. What are they doing that's different?
They've got all these programs to help employees customize their schedules, sabbaticals, part-time options, even job sharing, where two people split one full-time position.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's about giving employees choices.
Yeah, recognizing that everyone's different. People are happier, more productive when they have the power to create a schedule that works for their life.
Makes sense. And lastly, the article talks about Nike, a company that's all about health and wellness. What are they doing for their employees?
They've really invested in creating a healthy workplace. On-site gyms, personal trainers, wellness workshops, even healthy food options in the cafeteria. They get it. Healthy employees are happy employees, and happy employees are productive employees.
It's like they're making it easy to be healthy. So I'm seeing a pattern here. The companies that are doing this well, they're not just offering a few perks. They're really investing in their employees' well-being. Like it's part of their core values.
You got it. It's not just checking boxes. It's about creating a culture where well-being is a priority.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key things you hope people will take away from this?
I hope they feel empowered, knowing that they have the power to create a more balanced, fulfilling life, both in their current job and as they think about their future career.
Right. It's about taking control.
Yeah, and recognizing that well-being isn't a luxury, it's essential. And it's about taking those small steps consistently to prioritize yourself, even when things are crazy busy.
And remembering that they're not alone. There are resources out there, books, podcasts, therapists, support groups.
Absolutely. And companies that get it. So find those companies that align with your values. Prioritize your well-being as you move forward in your career. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. There will be good times, tough times. But by making those conscious choices, prioritizing your mental and physical health, you can create a life that feels good, a life that you can sustain.
This has been so insightful. I think our listeners are going to walk away from this with a lot to think about and hopefully feeling really hopeful.
Me too. Here's to a future where well-being is a given, both at work and in life.